All right, Gary, thanks so much for joining me as always. We've been talking about GPS, and I mean, I get that GPS is important for a lot of things in business, logistics, especially for trucking and shipping, and I mean, airports, obviously, and things like that. But I mean, that's it, right? Like, that's just kind of what it covers is just that location stuff. So, why are we even talking about this?
Great question, Nathan. And you're right. GPS, does play a role, an important role within these industries. However, it has a much wider role beyond just those industries that you mentioned, like airports and trucking and so forth. So for instance, GPS plays a mission role in asset tracking,
Mm,
geofencing. I'm trying to think personal safety as well as secure communications. So also within smart cities, right? GPS is widely used. So if you kind of drill down specifically a little bit more just on some of the applications,
mhm.
what comes to mind is asset tracking. GPS enables the real time tracking of valuable assets, which is essential for many purposes, including security.
Mhm.
It's used to track, secure high-value goods, equipment, and vehicles. I would think that the top three, asset tracking applications that come to mind would be, companies like fleet management, supply
Mm.
chain, for visibility,
Sure.
construction equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So GPS is used in many areas for mission critical applications. But if we just double click for a second, just on the supply chain, right, which
Mhm.
is huge, right? GPS is enabled to track, these critical supply chain and logistics of tankers and containers and so forth. So GPS provides us complete end-to-end visibility, enabling companies to track the location, and conditions of their high value products, right, as they move through the various stages of the supply chain. And of course, with that, right, with that, you get, real time, alerts can be
Mhm.
triggered if assets deviate from the planned routes. Or if there are unexpected delays, helping to minimize, to mitigate security risks and optimize logistics and so forth. So that's some of the key areas that GPS is used,
Mhm.
and you're kind of thinking a little bit here. If we take a look at the secure communications, GPS is often integrated within these IoT devices to establish these secure communications and authenticated communications, which is very important. So ensuring that the data transmitted between these devices remain confidential and tamper-proof is critical. So in a nutshell, right, secure GPS plays a critical role in wireless IoT applications,
Mm.
ensuring the integrity, confidentiality, and reliability of location-based data, such as self-driving cars,
Oh.
the use of drones, and of course, it's essentially used in the 911, dispatch services. So Nathan, as a quick recap, right? This GPS does play a pivotal role outside the kind of key verticals that you just mentioned, because it's now enabling wireless applications and IoT applications to protect these assets, which enhances the safety and security of these critical communications across many different industries, not just airports and trucking and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks.
Okay.
With all that being said, why would, bad actors really wanna target GPS systems? I mean, and, like, what type of vulnerabilities or threats are inherent there? Because it seems like a good system, but why would they even mess with it?
Okay, that's again, that's another great question. So bad actors target GPS systems all the time due to their integral role across numerous applications and of course functionalities that they're used for every single day. Right.
Okay.
The main the main reason that GPS is a target is the cost of software-defined radios, which is the ability to scan, multiple, radio frequencies and new protocols, has fallen sharply over the past several years. And now bad actors, right, have access to the broader range of these frequencies to manipulate, play, hack, do whatever they want with. So the vulnerabilities and threats inherent in GPS systems are definitely prolific, but they can be categorized in a couple of key areas that GPS relies on. And so that you have dependency on GPS for critical infrastructure, as well as dependency on GPS for emergency services. And basically, by disrupting those communications, you can cause obviously a lot of havoc, right? So attackers now have the tools in place using software-defined radios to target, these vulnerabilities in GPS systems. So there's many sectors like transportation, telecommunications, finance, and emergency services rely heavily on GPS, as you know, for accurate timing and location data. So obviously any disruption can lead to widespread chaos, affecting everything from stock market transactions to just the function of the power grids.
Wow.
And the two main things that we're seeing in the wild, the two things that we are really worried about is this thing called jamming and spoofing attacks, Nathan. So if you're not familiar with that, jamming attacks involve the broadcasting signals at the same frequency of the existing GPS system in place to overpower the legitimate GPS signals that are being used. And of course, this can lead to loss of GPS functionality. And of course, the impact area could be from a few, kilometers to several miles, depending on, the strength of the signals. Spoofing attacks, however, are more sophisticated than jamming. Spoofing involves the broadcasting of false GPS signals, and if there's a kind of spoofing attack going on, this typically tricks the existing GPS receivers into believing that they are, different location or times potentially being, sent across the signals, and it confuses the navigation and timing systems, basically. So those are two major attacks that have increased the attack surface of GPS. And so this is a big problem for airports as they rely on GPS, think about it, right, for landing and takeoff, as well as other critical services. And in fact, on our website, loch.io, we have a specific GPS attack surface data sheet for airports, if folks listening are interested in that. But airports do use GPS in a critical way, and therefore it's really important to understand not only just the spoofing and jamming attack, but the other things that get involved with GPS signals. Okay. Kind of just thinking again out loud, right? Our military uses GPS on a significant scale as well. And if you think about it, right, if there's a jamming attack or some sort of interference, it could significantly disrupt, the impact of our troops moving. It could impact, what's going on with their supplies. So there's no question that we need to be aware of this new attack surface, the GPS that's kind of upon us now. So
yeah,
that's some of the major attacks. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's great. No, I appreciate the answers there. With all of these vulnerabilities and the threats that can come from GPS, what should organizations do to protect themselves from GPS disruptions and to overall secure their systems?
Yeah. So it's good question. So there's no question, right? The need to be able to implement a best practice approach, is definitely critical, because a reliance on GPS is such that it's now an integrated, integral part of our solutions for delivering, mission critical applications these days. So, in my opinion, I think there's probably a couple of a couple of key things they could do to help mitigate the risk and reduce their attack surface. And I would say, the number one thing in order for organizations to protect themselves against GPS disruptions and secure the systems would to take a kind of proactive and strategic approach by implementing, maybe an alternative redundant systems.
Mm-hmm.
So avoid relying solely on GPS. If it is being used in a mission critical role, they could look to using alternative navigation systems such as terrestrial radio navigation systems. So Nathan, terrestrial systems use ground-based radio transmitters to provide positioning and velocity and timing, as opposed to GPS, which uses satellite-based navigation systems, such as obviously signals coming from satellites. So the terrestrial radio navigation systems could be a way to provide particular avoidance, but there is obviously is an attack surface as well, but it's different from GPS. So that's one thing that they could consider. Okay, I would say the second thing that they could incorporate and build into their cybersecurity profile is anti-jamming and anti-spoofing technologies, and they could equip their critical infrastructure with receivers that provide anti-jamming capabilities and algorithms to detect and mitigate spoofing attacks. And this is somewhat, what we're doing here at LOCH with our AirShield GPS Canary system, is that we have the ability to look at anomaly behaviors and show if there's any jamming or spoofing going on. But the bottom line is, I would say step two is the ability to establish a baseline of normal signals and behaviors and be able to alert on spoofing and jamming attacks. So the goal of the AirShield platform is to detect that kind of source of interference, and so having that in place, anti-jamming and detection capability in place would be good. And I think the third thing that I would recommend is that they could enhance the monitoring and detection capabilities. Again, this is somewhat an area that we do at LOCH as well, where we protect the GPS platform. This gives the critical facility the ability to look for deviation of policies or unacceptable, maybe sources of interference that they can rely on. But basically, they could, look at, implementing, contingency plans, whereby if they're looking at assessment tools, right, they could develop and test contingency plans, of course, whereby if there's an outage, they could have a kind of plan A, plan B, kind of alternative. That would be good. They could raise awareness within their staff of GPS threats and risks, right? Educate them on the different sources of jamming, how to recognize them, how to deal with them, have that, emergency plan in place whereby they flip from GPS to a terrestrial network, potentially. And of course, continuous training and education on the GPS attacks and spoofing and jamming, kind of new capabilities that are out there. I would say customers could also collaborate with government and industry partners to see what other best practices are going on. The threat landscape is constantly changing. There's new attacks coming all the time. So again, conducting regular risk assessments would be good for organizations that are worried about, the effects of GPS within their environment, particularly if it is an airport or it's emergency services. So pen testing, running attacks specifically on GPS would be another good practice that they could implement. So that means they need to invest in cybersecurity a little bit so they can really identify some of the risks and threats. But overall, right? What I'm recommending is a GPS intrusion detection system,
Sure.
if that makes sense. So
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
some of the mitigation techniques that they could, particularly consider and look at, Nathan.
Yeah. Great answer, Gary. And as always, thanks so much for answering all my questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nathan, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.